Hello, welcome to the review of Tutorial 4. We started off, as you'd expect, with looking at TMA02. Important part of that is that you're contrasting sections 2 and 3 of the European Communities Act of 1972, dealing with our membership of the European Union and the application, incorporation of its law, of that into English law, and the Human Rights Act of 1998, dealing with the incorporation of the European Convention on Human Rights. Sections 3 and Section 4 needed to be looked at in details. Those sections are so important that now that you've done the TMA, don't forget them. Make sure that you have a good solid basis should you face anything, and I suspect you might, in the exam in October. Parliamentary sovereignty needed to be explaining, and Dicey's points are a useful tool. They're not the only thing that can be said about parliamentary sovereignty, but in answering a question they're useful as a tool. Clearly the better answers will question some aspects of Dicey, but useful tool for analysis. With the European Convention on Human Rights, what articles protect what? Certainly make sure you're fully familiar with the key articles and what they're about, and when you're answering a question like this, do think about which ones might apply. You're not limited to a challenge under just one article, there may be two, as there were in this case. So have a look and think, perhaps on the face of it this might not apply, but the more you think about it, the more the potential there is. On the problem questions like this, do consider how the issue would come to court. So in the first part of it, the way that the decision would be challenged would be as a defence to a prosecution for not being vaccinated. In the second part, it was about a claim for tort. Important thing to remember that the European Convention on Human Rights applies to governments. It's their decisions, it's their actions which can normally be challenged. But as we see in this issue of privacy, the principle of horizontal effect will apply. So the courts, as part of the government, are responsible for applying the rights in the convention. After looking at the TMA, we looked at the very important issue of judicial review. Key points to keep in mind are a judicial review case is founded upon a challenge to a decision. So if you're looking at facts, first thing you need to do is, what's the decision that's being challenged? So you'll ask, who made it? Now, in some problem questions, there will be an issue as to whether the person or body that's made the decision is a public body. And of course, if it fails that test, judicial review can't be brought. So, who made it? And secondly, how can the decision be challenged? Which takes us on to grounds for challenge. You'll have read in the manual about the Diplock criteria, the 3 criteria that Diplock set out in the GCHQ case. That's one case that is worth reading in detail. It's obviously got a lot to say about the royal prerogative, but it also has the Diplock criteria, and reading the judgments will give you an indication of what the feeling was in 1984 about when it's appropriate to bring cases on royal prerogative, and an explanation of these criteria. So worth reading the case in full. But of course, since then, the Human Rights Act has passed, and some will argue that there's now a 4th criteria, breach of European Convention right. So of course you need to analyse it in terms of those criteria. The other thing that's quite helpful to look at is that you'll see that there are a number of terms which come up frequently. Labels, like misuse of power, like unlawful discretion, unlawful delegation. You'll see these come through, and what I've done is that I've emailed a list of those and suggest that you actually, again, looking through the textbook, you build up for yourself a set of pigeonholes so that you get to recognise those terms, and when you look at a problem question you think which label will apply. On to TMA 03. The wording of the question is always important, and here one part asks you to explain something, the other two ask you to quote, consider whether something. So your answer should reflect the question set. Remember that judicial review is about challenging a decision. Consider the various labels that might be applicable. And this is an area, and it's a big change from constitutional law where there are relatively few cases. This is an area where I would expect to see a lot of cases used to back up your argument. Okay, well thank you, and look forward to receiving your TMAs.